This is Tuesday night. The fantasy cheat sheet is back. It's me, Mike, drop the mic FF, along with Zach at the Big Pulowski. What's up, Zach? How you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing good, thanks. How are you, Mike?
I'm doing good. Just ready to get talking after the draft is over and dissecting with fantasy rookie drafts and all that jazz. It's time to get into some veterans though, because rookie drafts are starting to wind down, and the veterans on your team is also what's going to help you win the championship. So tonight on our topic, we will be talking about some of the veterans in the NFL that we are either in or out on. But before that, let's get into some quick news. There's not a lot. First off, Jarvis Landry is returning to the state of Louisiana, where he was born and raised and went to LSU. He is signing with the New Orleans Saints. What do you think about that, Zach?
I like it for the Saints. I mean, it's another weapon. It's less pressure on Olave right out the gates, and I think it'll help Jameis. I mean, we already know Jameis is going to throw the ball a lot. I mean, obviously, there's Alvin Kamara there who's the focal point, but at the same time, it makes life easier for guys like Michael Thomas as well, where suddenly the workload's not completely on their shoulders, where Michael Thomas is going to be the clear number one. And I mean, Michael Thomas still will, but this is another respected veteran wide receiver that will distract some defensive schemes where everyone should be able to flourish more. I like it. What are your thoughts on it, Mike?
I like Landry. I think it's going to be a little bit of a hit initially for Olave, but I am not totally sold in on Michael Thomas this year. So I think getting Landry is a good backup just in case Thomas isn't ready or isn't getting along with the team, because you never know with that guy right now.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, for sure. But let's talk about something real quick, near and dear to your heart, and you don't even know him. You know now, I think you know what I'm going to bring up. Jair Alexander getting the cash back up that Brinks truck. 4 years, $84 million extension. My opinion, he deserves to get paid, but I am going to take a step back and let the Packer fan give his take.
I was thrilled. I mean, I didn't want to find out what happened if there was a potential lockout or a holdout, whatever you want to call it, with him not wanting to play until he got rid of that franchise tag and he had a long-term deal. I love the way they structured the deal as well. I believe it was $32 million in signing bonus, and then it was a 1 year, or $1 million. It was the base salary you could get for veteran players. That's what they gave him. So yeah, $1 million for this year, and then $32 million in signing bonus. So the rest of the roughly $80 million is over the following 3 seasons. So about just under $50 million. And I like that. I think it's a good deal for Green Bay. It's someone they needed to lock down. He's one of the best cornerbacks in the league when he's healthy. He's going to be a primary point of attack for Green Bay's defense. This is a defense that hopes and looks like it could be a top 5 defense in the league. And, if they want to have this top-end defense, it's got to start with Jair. I mean, he's one of the best in the league, and for once, Green Bay might actually have a good defense. So I'm glad to know he's locked in long term.
Yeah, for sure. And news coming out today, a little bit of sad news, but I do want to bring it up. I don't know if you read the article that Tariq Cohen came out with, his letter. I read part of it, choked me up, didn't read the whole thing yet. But unfortunately, it is confirmed that Tariq Cohen got injured today in practice, and it is a torn Achilles. He is done for the season. I don't know if he's going to have he might get another shot in the NFL. He's been injured a lot. All I want to say is prayers out. Hope you get better. What do you think, Zach?
It's sad. I mean, this is a guy that's been fighting through a lot of injuries. You keep hoping for the rebound, seeing that opportunity come back for him. And he was a productive guy on the Bears as that RB2 in the pass catching role. I was hoping to see it come back at some point in time, but clearly that's not going to happen. I didn't read the article. I didn't read what Tariq wrote, but I did see a footage because he had it on Instagram Live. There was a stream feed of it when it happened. So I found a clip of that, and yeah, no, it's too bad though. That's a guy you were potentially keeping an eye on in case he could make a rebound, and safe to say that rebound doesn't look plausible anymore. But someone where you hope he can get another shot somewhere, you hope he can produce, but it's not looking good. Not that Tariq's stock was high in fantasy anyway, but for anyone that had him stashed with potential hopes of something this year, that's out the window for sure. But hopefully he can recover and it's not the complete end for him.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. So are you ready to get into the meat and potatoes of the episode?
Yes, sir. Yes, I am.
All right. So basically, are you in or are you out on a vet? It can be anybody from a second-year guy all the way to someone that's about to retire like Tom Brady, but we know he's not being brought up on this thing. So I'm going to start it off. The number one in most rookie drafts is Breece Hall. So, of course, who am I out on? Unfortunately, because I do have a couple shares, Michael Carter. Why? Because this offense is not going to be able to sustain two stud guys. So I think this is going to end up, I don't know what you think, Zach. I was talking to a couple other people the other day. I think it's going to end up being like a 65-35 timeshare with Breece being on the top side. Yeah, they're going to bring Michael Carter in to sub and, and catch some balls and, whatever. They're going to use him, but his outlook of being the number one back in the Jets is no longer there. Zach Wilson hopefully gets better. I do like Zach Wilson. They brought in Garrett Wilson. They go and draft Jeremy Ruckert. They bring in CJ Azuma. They bring in Tyler Conklin. Not saying that all those guys are like stud players and you're going to, snatch them up and start them right away in your roster. But there is so many mouths to feed in that offense now that there's going to probably be more passing than running on that squad as it is. They're going to be more of a passing team. And then you bring in Breece Hall on top of it. Breece is going to get the majority of the carries. And for that reason, right now, I am out on Michael Carter. I would not be buying him, not necessarily selling him, because you're not going to get the value that you bought him for. He's probably a hold and redraft. If he falls to me, I'll take him, but I will not take Michael Carter at his current ADP.
I agree with some of what you're saying. I'm a little bit more optimistic in what Michael Carter can be. Speaking of Tariq Cohen, I guess I look at him as someone that can be that role. When Tariq Cohen was in his prime, he was getting a lot of those little dump pass receptions for the Bears. I think Michael Carter can be like that for the Jets this year. Like you already mentioned, Mike, it's going to be a pass-first offense, most likely with all the weapons they brought in. And with Zach Wilson behind center, clearly they're still trying to identify what they have there at quarterback. But Robert Saleh also is someone, the coaching tree he came from, I'm expecting him to use multiple running backs. I mean, we saw that last year as well. But I'm also thinking, one drive at a time, there's going to be rotations on who the primary back is. But also, obviously Michael Carter had some really productive weeks last year, but there was not on the ground, but also via the receptions. I mean, 1 week in particular against the Bengals, he had 9 receptions on 14 targets for 95 yards. And with that in mind, I'm optimistic on what he can do and what he can provide in regards to not necessarily what you paid to get him, but this isn't a guy that's familiar with being the backup. Remember, when he was at UNC, Javonte Williams was also there, and he still was succeeding. He was still getting reps. He was still looking good. I mean, he went in the 4th round as the backup running back at North Carolina. So in the Jet system, I think it's a good change of pace between Breece Hall and Michael Carter, but I like some sort of usage for him. I think some people are very low on him, where I would definitely keep him because he could be a good bye week filler. I'm working on a piece right now about specific bye weeks to keep an eye on for going for 2. And That's a week. There's a few weeks where running backs could be pretty bleak for those top tier guys, and someone like Michael Carter could definitely still contribute for you. So I wouldn't sell him for as low as he's going right now. And if you want to get rid of him at some point and you don't have the handcuff with Brees Hall, I would wait. I would wait until midseason. Let's see some, PPR points. Let's see something there, and then identify from there. Because I'm sure his stock will go up a little bit. It will never be what it was when it looked like he could be the RB1, but I would definitely hold him for now. I'm more optimistic than most, but I don't think it's the end of the world for him and his productive fantasy career.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I'm not low on him like some of the people in the fantasy community. I'm just tempering my expectations because my problem is I was so high on him coming out of UNC that this really like stabbed like right in the right there. So let's get to your first guy. I'll say who it is, but then you tell me in or out. Are you in or out on Albert O from Denver?
I am out. I mean, I always was out. I was low on him compared to everyone else off the back. I mean, most people were saying that he could be X, Y, or Z, and I didn't see that. But they took Greg Dulcich from UCLA, and I think he's going to come in and be tight end one fairly quick. Obviously, Denver got rid of Noah Fant, and people were saying how Albert O was the next guy, and that's why they got rid of him. I think it was more so Seattle saw a guy in Noah Fant who they really wanted when giving up Russell Wilson, and Denver said, "Fine, we'll part ways with him." But they clearly addressed tight end at a fairly early slot, and there's plenty of other tight ends in later rounds if they weren't feeling necessarily aggressive at addressing that position. So when they took Greg Dulcich, that told me, hey, we aren't really thrilled about Alberto, and we need to get someone that could hopefully take over that role at some point in the near future. So that's where I'm out on Alberto.
I got you on that. Before I give my opinion on Alberto, let's go to Jamie's comment real quick about Michael Carter. I sold Carter in a 308 for the 208 and drafted Dameon Pierce. I do like Dameon Pierce. I think he will end up being the number one back. I think he was misused in Florida for the Florida Gators, and I believe that is part of the reason he did fall a little bit in some rookie drafts, minus the fact that he went to Houston. But what do you think real quick about that trade before we move on to what I think about Alberto?
Not a terrible deal. I can see the reasoning behind it. I mean, it's painful to see what Carter's selling for now after, a week before the draft. Stock was a lot higher. But no, if you're getting someone like Dameon Pierce who looks like they could contribute in year one, that's a good move for sure. But let's hear your thoughts on Alberto, Mike.
All right, so let's start with I'm going to have to go a little bit further back, and I'm going to go with Noah Fant. I'm going to start off with Noah Fant, and we're going to get to Albert O. I was a huge Noah Fant fan when he got drafted. I was also, even though I'm a Chiefs fan, I was in on Drew Lock. Then things started slipping in. Drew started sliding. But everyone thought there was always a connection between Albert O and Drew Lock. So when they first started making rumors that there was going to be a tight end that was going to go to Seattle with the trade, because they already said that Lock was probably going to be involved. When there was rumors that a tight end was going to be involved in that trade, I thought it was going to be Albert O to keep the Lock Albert O connection. Then you go and you get Russell Wilson as your quarterback. You have an athletic guy out of Missouri like Albert O. I wasn't in on him, but I wasn't out on him either. But you bring in Greg Dulcich from UCLA. Plus, you have all those other weapons with Sutton and Judy. You can't forget KJ Hamler and Tim Patrick, Javonte. Yes, they brought Melvin Gordon back. They still have Mike Boone on the roster. I agree with you. I am out on Albert O, and it hurts for me to say that.
It was a short-lived dream for a lot of Alberto believers out there. I mean, yeah. I'm sure some people are still going to stake their claim in the belief that Alberto can be it this year, but I just don't see it at this point in time.
And I completely understand why people would be on either way. And That's the way it is on that one. So for my next player, I am totally in on this guy, and that is Rashad Bateman from the Baltimore Ravens. I know Lamar's not a total pass throwing quarterback, but I'll be honest, I don't care, Zach. I know he's also. We were in a chat today, me and you, and it was brought up that he's not the number one target. That's Mark Andrews. Not comparing him to Tariq Hill. That's not what I'm doing. I'm not comparing him to anyone on the Chiefs, wide receivers.
I feel like there's a but coming.
But was Travis Kelce or Tariq Hill the number one target? To me, you could argue that it was Travis Kelce. And it's obviously going to be Travis Kelce this year. That doesn't mean that the number one wide receiver doesn't have some value no matter what. He's going to have value at that position. I think DLF has him at like 22 right now, I think, in recent startup.
Right around there, yeah.
I think it's 21 or 22. I would definitely take him at his recent DLF ADP. I would even take him into I haven't looked at it super hard, but I would probably take him 17, 18. I think that his future is bright. I also think that for dynasty purposes, there's a chance in 2 or 3 years that Lamar might not be his quarterback. And if he isn't the quarterback, I don't see John Harbaugh just having a Carson Wentz or a Mariota type be the fill-in. I think the way that organization's ran, they're going to get someone else to come in. But even for this year and for next year, I'm in on Rashad Bateman. Definitely, I'm not saying he's going to be a number one wideout. He's not going to finish top 12. But if he was your WR2 or WR3, I would be if he was my WR3, I'd be jumping up for joy with pom-poms. I mean, hands down, if he was my WR3, I would even try to buy him if you can get him for trying to think of a player that I would downgrade from. If I had Godwin and I can get Bateman plus just a little bit, I would do it in a second.
You think people would do that? Because I guess maybe it's just the leagues I'm in, but I have a feeling people would look at a trade like that where they're going to be more on the pro Bateman side, where they're not going to want to give up Godwin straight up. They'd want to receive more. Or they wouldn't want to give Bateman straight up. They'd want to get Godwin plus. But I mean, even then, if you're throwing in a 3rd round pick, something like that, something relatively cheap, but you're upgrading, I think it's worth it.
That's what I would do.
What I wanted to say too real quick was the fact of, you were mentioning a conversation earlier today about this, but for the people out there, so Going for Two, we've opened up our Discord, we've added channels, so come check it out. All of the content creators over at Going for Two, we're all usually debating about football takes. We've got plenty of channels to talk about who you should take at this position if you're on the clock, or what trades you should make, or anything else football related. We got channels for everything, so come join in on the conversation. But with that in mind, Bateman, I like. It's relative, though. I get where you're coming from. I don't disagree, but I also have a little bit of nerves about the fact that, the Ravens' weaponry, they scare me. I don't love the pass volume of Lamar. I don't trust it, especially with both of the running backs coming back. Now we have Dobbins and Edwards, and they were both out last year, but also, it was career high pass attempts for Lamar was 401. And when we were talking about Tyreek Hill comp, Mike, like you mentioned, I don't know if I can necessarily see that high of a volume due to the fact that, Mahomes is the QB. He's throwing a lot more. He's got a lot more attempts per game, and that's where someone like Bateman concerns me. I don't
think that he's going to get that high of a volume at all. All I'm saying is people are downgrading him because I've heard even today and yesterday and on another thing that people are downgrading him because he's not the team's number one overall target. All I'm saying is you can still succeed as a number 2 or 3 wideout for fantasy without being the number one team's target.
Even if he's not the number one target, he's the clear, far and away number two. And that's where, even though I have my concerns about Lamar and the weapons with how it could be split up between a whole bunch of people, at the same time, I'm looking at it, well, yeah, there might be a few dump passes to Dobbins, Edwards. However, from those wideouts they have, I don't look at it being anyone except Bateman. Obviously, Andrews is going to be their primary target. However, outside of that, it's Bateman and then everyone else. So in regards to a guy that you could trust in regards to volume, I'm definitely in on Bateman as well. I don't know how much I'd be willing to give up, mainly due to the fact that I can feel that it's not going to be cheap whatsoever, as I think the hype train's starting to really pick up, but reasonably so because, well, we saw Brown, and he was more of a boom or bust guy, a best ball type of producer. I think Bateman is more of a 10-yard out route type of guy that can win more jump balls, kind of provide all over the place. And so I see value for sure in regards to what Bateman can be this year and in the future. I mean, and also say, like you mentioned, Mike, Lamar's not there in a couple of years because they can't figure out that contract situation. They get someone who's throwing the ball more rather than doing scrambling, and yeah, some of it's coaching, but at the same time, if they suddenly have a pocket passer, I would love Bateman even more. So there's definitely even more upside in years to come.
Yeah, just like Jamie says, his comment is you can get Bateman in the 8th round of some best balls right now. People are down on him right now.
8th round is a good deal for sure. I think that's a great deal there.
If you told me that I'm not a big best ball guy, I want to get into it a little bit more, but if you could tell me that I can get him in the 8th round right now, sign me up, Jamie. Sign me up.
I'm not the biggest Bateman guy, but also I would have thought 6th round would have been a good deal on him. So if he's fallen to the 8th round, sign me up because I want that for sure.
So to move on to the next topic, I think you want to talk about a couple guys that have a new quarterback. Why don't you go for it?
I do, but first off, I want to talk about the guys that didn't get a new quarterback, and I hope they would. Seattle. We mentioned them a little bit with Alberto and all that stuff, the Noah Fant trade, but I really hope Seattle was one of those teams that saw these guys, especially with where QBs were falling 3rd, 4th round, taking a flyer there, giving Drew Lock some competition. I heard reports pre-draft that Seattle was content with Drew Lock this year, and while I believed that to a point, I don't trust a lot of those reports because sometimes it's just smoke screen so they can get their guy, whether that be via trade or via draft. Figured that's what Seattle was doing. I thought we've had enough of a Drew Lock sample size where we've seen enough. And I know you, Mike, were a little higher on Lock than I was coming out the gates.
Yep.
But I have not been impressed whatsoever. I mean, Drew Lock just fits the stereotype of every other drafted QB by Denver since Jay Cutler. And yeah, it's not good. And I have my concerns for Lockett and Metcalf. I have DK in a few leagues. I'm optimistic that this hurts him less than Tyler, but at the same time, it's scary. Lockett and Metcalf are these major producers, high ADP wide receivers, and suddenly they have Drew Lock throwing the ball. And let me remind everyone, too, the major concern with Russell Wilson in Seattle was his health, and that health came from a lack of protection due to a weak offensive line. It's not that Seattle necessarily has a great offensive line now, and with a much more average to below average quarterback, I'll try and be nice with Drew Lock. I don't see a lot of opportunity there. I think it's going to be a run first, run heavy offense. And Jamie just mentioned too, what if Fitzpatrick goes to Seattle? I think that would be a great upgrade there. That's still a 1 year kind of patching the hole for the time being, and I thought that's what a lot of teams should have done, and I get from that perspective. Hello, sorry, my cat's saying hi, but I can understand from that perspective. If you don't like any of these QBs in the 22 class, which I wasn't a fan of any of them either, I get trying to hold off, and if you're trying to tank for next year, where you have Lockett and Metcalf under contract, and you bring in a Bryce Young, a C.J. Stroud, a Tyler Van Dyke, Anthony Richardson, so many other guys that will be in next year's class, I get that for sure. But I don't know. This is one team where I thought Pittsburgh would have had this approach more than Seattle. I look at, Trubisky, as many bad things that have been said about him, I would take him over Drew Lock. I I don't think that's necessarily a hot take either. Do you agree with
No,
that, Mike? Yeah.
no, we are on this topic. We are 100% on agreement about the difference between Drew Lock and Trubisky. Even
Yeah.
though I was in on Lock now or before, I am out on Lock now. And Trubisky, even though everyone wants to give him crap, I give him crap for doing some stupid stuff. To me, he is serviceable. He's not
Yep.
going to go out and throw, 4,000 yards or this and that, but he is a serviceable guy that can get manageable. Pittsburgh,
Yep.
that would have been perfect for Pitt this year if they didn't draft Pickett, because you have Najee Harris. You have a good defense. I know we're getting a little bit off topic, but you
But
have Najee Harris. You have a good defense. You have the wideouts.
it's the
And then
same thing with
it's
same
the same
thing.
thing.
Yeah,
Same
but
thing.
except a good defense. Yeah, but no, like Pittsburgh has its own offensive line concerns, but both teams it's just a filler year, and that Pickett selection didn't make sense, especially compared to where everyone else went in regards to the QBs in this class, and that's where back to Seattle. Drew Lock, I don't think is it. I'm surprised. Are they going to bring Geno Smith in? We've already seen how the Teddy Bridgewater and Lock split last year went. I don't know if we need another repeat of that, but I think at this point Seattle's clearly just kind of tossing their flag in on this upcoming season and trying to plan ahead, which I mean could work out long term, but short term for the Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf types, if you have them, it's going to be a little bit of a concern. Also, one last note on the subject, though, I did want to touch on the fact that I mentioned a little bit, but I think this doesn't hurt DK Metcalf as much as Tyler Lockett. Tyler Lockett was definitely the preferred target for Russ, and I think with a new QB that might help someone like DK more and hurt Tyler more. Just as it might be more of a split, or say Drew Lock and DK or whoever else is potentially the QB develops more chemistry with DK, suddenly he could be that wide receiver one there rather than Tyler. But either way, it's not a good look for either of them in regards to their 22 outlook. Who do you have next, Mike?
Yeah, so real quick before we go to my next one, I just want to say I completely agree with you on everything you said about the Seattle Seahawks. But let's not forget, I know I'm being kind of joking around with this, but I did see something that said, Geno could, compete a little bit for the job. But they're saying that Jacob Eason could also be battling for the backup spot. Not saying he's going to start over Lock. I'm not saying that. But when you have a three-headed monster of not great quarterbacks, that's probably not a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, at least Seattle didn't make the same Matt Flynn mistake they made a few years ago with Green Bay, where, Matt Flynn had a great week 17 against Detroit. I think he threw 7 touchdowns on the final week against a 0-win team, I believe that was the year. And then he
Yeah.
got paid just for Russell Wilson to come in and steal the job. So, to Seattle's credit, they didn't make that mistake. I don't even think it's a hot take if, say, Jacob Eason ends up with that job. There's plenty of guys out there on the market or that are QB2 or QB3 on their different respected teams that could come in via trade for cheap and compete for the job. I don't think it's something that's firmly planted in Drew Lock as much as I think it's just Seattle saying, hey, we don't like these guys and we're more focused on who we could get next year.
Yeah, for sure. So, how about so we're going to do a little bit of improv here. And I am going to show something. Just one sec. My computer is being slow. I think you know where I'm going with this.
We've got our Falcons talk.
So let's start off with yours. Are you in? Are you in or are you out on Cordarrelle Patterson, Zach?
I am out. I was out to begin with, as you know, it was kind of a freak incident what happened last year. It was hard to see the same level of production, and I mean, we even saw it taper off towards the end of the 21 season. But with Tyler Algier coming in, I think Cordarrelle Patterson will still get some reps behind the line of scrimmage, but for the most part, I think he'll be used as a hybrid, some wide out, some running back, but I think Tyler Algier will be taking over more of those reps as the running back. I like Tyler Algier. He wasn't necessarily crazy high on my pre-draft list for the running backs, but at the same time, relative to what they're working with now, they let Mike Davis go right after the draft. I think the opportunity is there for Tyler Algier. I'm curious to see what he can be, but this is also a guy that's being taken relatively late for what kind of production he could get in year one in rookie drafts right now. So someone that, you know, if you can get him middle, late, second round, worth it. If you need another running back, if you need that RB2, he's worth it for sure. What are your thoughts on Cordarrelle and Tyler?
So I drafted Tyler Algier in a rookie draft. I wanted him in another rookie draft, and I was not able to snag him. I do 100% agree with you that Cordarrelle in Dynasty, Cordarrelle's getting older, Algier's younger, but I do think that they're going to use him a little bit differently. Arthur Smith does like a workhorse running back. He likes the bigger kind of running back, more like Algier comparatively to Patterson. I personally believe that the reason they used Patterson as a running back last year, but the major thing is with Cordarrelle is I think they used him last year at running back out of necessity more than the want to. It was more of a need than a want because they didn't really have a running game. Mike Davis wasn't doing it at one point, so they said, hey, here, Cordarrelle, take the ball and try to get in, and it worked. And because of that, I think it's going to keep going that way where they're going to give the ball to Algier. Obviously, Cordarrelle's going to get some run, but I think Patterson is better used in other ways out of the backfield. And let's roll right into my pick because it also takes Mr. Marcus Mariota to get the ball down the field for them to score, where I think he could throw, dump offs and everything and little swings and little gadget plays to Mariota or to Cordarrelle, just like others do. And just like Jamie said, Damian Williams is in that backfield too. There's another mouth to feed. So that's another addition to your argument about Cordarrelle Patterson. But I am absolutely out on Marcus Mariota. Here's why. He's a running quarterback. You got Kyle Pitts, you got Drake London, and whoever else they got at wideout because it's not that major. I mean, they just traded for Brian Edwards from the Raiders. So, I mean, Brian Edwards might be their number 2 behind, or 3 was Olamide Zaccheaus. But Mariota does not throw the ball down the field, which is what Drake London needs, which is what Pitts needs. He's a running quarterback. They do not have a great offensive line. We all know that. We were all saying that they should have, in my opinion, even though Pitts is a once-in-a-generational talent, they probably should have taken an offensive lineman when Penei Sewell was on the board at 4 in 2021 if you wanted to shore up the offensive line. The other reason I am out on Marcus Mariota, Zach, I think there's a decent chance that Desmond Ridder starts by week 17.
I think easily before week 17. Yeah. I think it's
at some point at the end of the year, I think it's Ridder's job.
I think it could be, beginning of the second half of the season. And I agree as well. For the most part, I'm a little higher on Mariota than some, but that's more so in deep leagues. You know, you got the 14, 16 team leagues where you're just hoping for a guy that, say, on a bye week is getting reps as the starting quarterback.
Yep.
I like Mariota there. I think he's relatively cheap, and I think people are low on him for the most part, where if you want another guy, you don't really have a QB3 option in regards to filling in on bye weeks for your other quarterbacks in a super flex league. Mariota's someone to consider. I don't love him. I mean, you got to remember, this is a guy who lost his job to Ryan Tannehill. Say what you will about Tannehill, but I know most of us don't like him. I mean, and I tried to believe in more coming from Tannehill at one point in time, but he's proven that wrong. And so from that point, I just want to say, like, I'm looking at Mariota's stats right now. It's not good. I mean, a career high of 3,426 passing yards. Doesn't necessarily throw a ton of interceptions. The most he's thrown in 1 year is 15. But yeah, 26 touchdowns is his max. The volume isn't necessarily there. So I'm expecting, back to our previous conversation with the running backs with Damian Williams, Cordero Patterson, Tyler Algier, I'm expecting them to be the primary focus of that offense. I don't think Mariota's anything more than a filler, and I think Ritter's more of a shot in the dark. You know, they didn't use a lot of draft equity there, so I'm watching Ritter. I think he'll be a second half of the year guy, probably get some reps, see what they have, but it won't be quick. They want to, you know, let him progress, figure out the system, get comfortable, but also, like what I've already mentioned with Seattle, Pittsburgh, some of those other teams were planning ahead in regards to what the next draft class has in store for the QBs. Atlanta's a prime option for a team that's aggressive in regards to low expectations this year and hoping to get a nice piece next year. And I like what Atlanta's done. I mean, Tyler Algier, Cordero Patterson, Damian Williams, but then, yeah, Kyle Pitts, even though they do need an offensive line. Ridley will be back in 23 as well. And then you're adding in Brian Edwards, Drake London. I like a lot of their weaponry where you bring in a rookie QB and you can get some guys to protect them. I like future years. So while I would not be high on Mariota or their weapons this year, definitely don't disregard their dynasty value in future years, because with these teams, they're eyeing up future years for QBs. But right now, don't expect much from Mariota. Don't expect a guy that starts all 17 games. It's not going to be pretty, and you'll only just avoid any expectations of anything good because you'll just be disappointed.
I completely agree there. So there were expectations that a certain team in the NFC North was going to take some wideouts to help out their quarterback Fields. They kind of did. They kind of didn't. If you like a guy that's like 40 years old, the oldest guy in the draft. But what do you think about the guy who's still there?
Darnell Mooney is his name. I love him. I mean, I've been higher on him than most people anyway. I think this is the time to buy him. And I say the same for all the Bears weapons. Cole Kmet, David Montgomery, Darnell Mooney. They're all relatively low in regards to ADP, where they're going in these startup drafts where what you would need to give up in regards to acquiring them via trade. I'm sure they won't be that expensive in redraft leagues either. Someone like Mooney, I absolutely love. Similar to Green Bay, they didn't have a lot of weapons, and you're kind of looking at them like, okay, are you going to get someone? There's a few veteran guys like, hey, Julio or Jarvis or whoever, and you're asking, like, are you going to sign one of them? You don't really have a lot to work with right now. Well, they got Velus Jones. I mean, he'll slide right into the wide receiver too, because I don't think they really have much else. I mean, St. Brown I wouldn't consider as a viable option. I mean, Green Bay let him go for nothing into a rival team, so I think that kind of shows what his value is worth. But, you know, it's a new head coach. We don't know what this offense will look like, but with that in mind, we don't know what the offense looks like. We don't really know what Fields looks like. We haven't seen him for a full year We haven't seen him with a coach not named Matt Nagy. So I'm in on all the Bears' weapons. I was never the biggest Justin Fields guy, but I know people are out on him, and I look at it like, look, he doesn't have a lot of weapons to work with, but he can do a few different things. He's not just a pocket passer. And Mooney is definitely a target guy on those dump routes, on those deep routes. I think my only concern is how defenses game plan around him. But at the same time, I think the focus will be on Montgomery, Khalil Herbert, that backfield. So hopefully it's a run-first offense, and that'll help Mooney thrive. But I definitely recommend buying low on Mooney now because where he's at relative to price, I think it's similar to what you were mentioning earlier with Rashad Bateman, where you could give up someone that just bigger name or better team, and you're going to end up getting the more productive and probably younger option.
Exactly. I like Mooney. I don't like him as much as you do, but without Matt Nagy there, it has to get better, right, Zach? Like, I mean, Matt Nagy came from the Chiefs organization, but he wasn't the one calling the plays when he was the offensive coordinator for the Chiefs. And it shows why Andy Reid didn't let him call plays. He ruined Justin Fields' rookie season, in my opinion. Absolutely demolished it. Every single time that you thought it was getting a little bit better, it got worse. I agree with you about the weapons in Chicago as a whole, but my favorite one, plug in the Discord chat again. Go check that out. They're going for 2 Discord. And the reason I'm saying plug in the Discord chat is I think that I saw someone today mention that David Montgomery was one of your guys, and I agree with you. That him and Herbert are my 2 guys on that Bears roster right now. I love them both. I try to get Herbert in the back end of a rookie draft this year, like trading a pick for and combining it to get Herbert. It didn't work out, but I had to try because I think that there is a chance that Montgomery is gone in a year or two. You know, like you have to – running backs move more now, so if they like Herbert, they might not pay money. Not saying they will, not saying they won't, but most teams aren't doing bell cows anyway, so it's nice to have your second guy be good like Herbert is. Let's roll right into your next guy, and who you got?
It's in San Francisco. It's that running back room. Elijah Mitchell, Trey Sermon. Once again, I'm out. I hate to say it. I feel like I'm being very negative, but for the most part, what took place in this 2021 draft, or 22 draft, sorry. But what happened, I wasn't thrilled for a lot of situations. You know, Sermon clearly is not the answer. Clearly that's a botched pick at this point when they were aggressive on getting Davis Price in the 3rd round, just like they did. I believe Sermon was the 3rd round pick last year. And with that in mind, clearly they're over it. If they use that draft equity to get another guy right away, it also shows me some concern about Elijah Mitchell and his health. And also they didn't use, I believe, he was either a 7th round pick or UDFA. It was Elijah Mitchell. He was a late guy.
He was drafted.
Okay. But he doesn't have a lot of equity into him. He has some injury concerns. We saw him get banged up last year. And at this point in time, you know, someone like Davis Price, I'm trying to snag up. They didn't use him to begin with. Is he talking about he's talking about Sermon. Yeah. They didn't use him to begin with, and that's I mean, I think that says enough. You know, when Elijah Mitchell just jumped right in. I think that they saw enough in practice. They saw enough in camps where they're like, this isn't the guy. This isn't what we thought we got. Mitchell was 6th round. Okay, thank you.
What's going on, Derek? How you been, buddy? Thanks for checking in, Derek.
I look at TDP, and he's someone that he's fallen late in drafts because I believe everyone's still looking at Elijah Mitchell as the primary running back. But we've seen, regardless of who's there and who's healthy, them use multiple running backs. It's never just one guy. And someone like TDP can get late, and he's someone I've been trying to snag on as many rosters as I can get because I don't trust the health of the guys in front of them. And I just believe that the 49ers are going to give him work regardless of the health of all those other guys. What are your thoughts on the 49ers running back room?
I've never really been a big Shanahan running back room fan, and I'll explain why. Because I got burned way too many freaking times because of I got burned way too many times when Shanahan was in Atlanta when I had Coleman and I had Freeman on the same freaking roster. And when I played Freeman, Coleman went legit. When I played Coleman, Freeman went ham. I couldn't stand it. I told myself that unless he gets a bell cow and he's using them like crazy, I will be out on a Shanahan running back room. And then he adds freaking TDP, which is just crazy since the whole thing of already having Elijah Mitchell. Already, I know Sermon's in the doghouse, already having Sermon in the room at least. 2 rookies from last year, and you're drafting a rookie this year. I'm out. Like Jamie's comment right here. I've been trying to grab Davis Price in the 3rd round of all my rookie drafts. Oh, yeah, I would. You might as well, if you're that late in the rookie draft. I mean, I know I've got some IDP leagues that my rookie drafts are 4, 5, 6 rounds. If somebody was like that was the fall, I'll grab them and put them in my, put them on a taxi and see what happens. But I'm not going out and trying to move up or anything to acquire TDP.
I think you need to be cautious in general with the 49er running back room. Like you were already referencing, you can't trust it. You don't know for certain. Obviously, I like what I've seen from TDP in college, and I'm optimistic about his potential chance to move up the depth chart quick and have some injury concerns. But at the same time, it could easily be a UDFA I've never heard of, some D2 guy or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, you can't put it out of question when it comes to 49ers and how they just managed to pull in all these running backs and give a whole bunch of dudes that are not even on your radar reps. You look at him, running back 6, he won't even make the roster. Suddenly he's getting the 2nd largest workload on the team. I definitely would be cautious with Davis Price, but relative to where he's going, I like the value of potentially what he could be for what I'm using to get him.
Yeah, for sure. So for my next guy, we're getting deep into the show, so I'm going to keep this one short and sweet because I know most people will agree with me, but I just wanted to say it because I was on his wagon going into this season, going into last season before he got hurt on his old team. DJ Chark. DJ Chark. Come on. DJ Chark goes and signs a deal with the Detroit Lions, and then they go draft Jameson Williams. Even though Jameson's got a bad knee, I still think they're saying that he probably will be able to play a little bit, at some point this year. I am out. Capital O-U-T on DJ Chark. I was in on him. I flipped that switch really fast. I do like Amon St. Brown still, maybe a little bit less, but the guy to me that is going to hurt the worst in the Detroit offense, even though they don't have a stud quarterback, to me, the guy that's going to hurt the most is going to be DJ Chark. He signed a 1-year deal, and I do not see him being on the team in 2023. What do you think, Zach?
I agree. I wasn't as big of a DJ Chark guy as you were, but I think there's better options on Detroit. If good old boys just said, if there's better options, and I don't know. It's Jared Goff. They have DeAndre Swift. They have Jamal Williams, TJ Hawkins, similar to what we talked about with Baltimore. The tight end is going to be the primary target, and then when it's not him, it's going to be Amon-Ra St. Brown, and you have to assume if it's not Amon-Ra, it's because Jameson Williams is blowing up onto the scene quick. And other than that, I think it's a run-first offense. I don't trust Jared Goff, and I don't know how impressed, other than in the post-game interviews, anyone's been with the Detroit head coach either. I mean, I love his interviews, but not like they're really showing promise. They botched a few games. Like, who knows? I think DJ Shark's best chance will be, hopefully getting some reps this year and then just signing somewhere else next year. But I don't like what happened with the draft there. It didn't help him at all. He was looking as a wide receiver too, where, yeah, okay, he could be someone that you want where it's only him and Amon-Ra, but suddenly they bring in Williams. It's just tough to see much volume being there, and yeah, I wouldn't sell him in Dynasty because I think similar to some other guys we've mentioned, the price will be too low for probably what you paid to get him. But he's more of a guy that I just kind of keep on the bench and maybe a bye week filler, but otherwise that's all he should be if you've got him on your team.
The last thing I want to say about this topic is exactly what good old boys just put. Goff ranked 34th in average depth of target last year. Derek, I know you had to bring that up because you know I like Chark and you know I like the weapons in freaking Detroit. But you're right. It's freaking horrible. And with Goff, and what else does he have? Dan Campbell has the team fighting, and they were in more games than they probably should have been. Agreed. Just like Derek, just like me, you, and Robbie have said on other stuff, they got the fight now and they got the coach. They just need to get more talent on the field, and they will be good. So now those are our topics. So this is time for bonus time. And I got something set up. And all right, Zach, you're going to give me, I'm going to put it up for you. Here's one of your boys. I already know it, but are you in or out on this boy? Michael freaking Pittman. Are you in or out on this man?
I'm in. I'm loving what the potential could be this year. I know Matt Ryan hasn't looked the same in a couple of years, but I think that's partially to credit what the Falcons have put together for an offense. And also that offensive line wasn't good. We know the Colts have a good offensive line. We know it's going to be a run-first offense. I trust their head coach. Clearly they did not like what they had working with them in regards to Wentz. And I do look at Matt Ryan as a really good upgrade. He's going to be more of a game manager, but I looked at this draft and I loved the Alec Pierce pick. Thought it was a good slot value, but also, it's just going to help Michael Pittman. If Alec Pierce is actually productive this year, it's going to give someone else for them to be concerned about. Because right now, Paris Campbell was the second best wide receiver, and I don't think teams are going to be too concerned with that. So if Alec Pierce can be another deep ball guy and have some sort of threat, it's just going to enhance what Pittman can be on your fantasy team. I think the production should be there. Obviously, it's JT first, but at the same time, I like Pittman a lot this year. And obviously, it's tough to say long-term because who knows who the QB will be after Matt Ryan and who knows how many years he'll have left. But, yeah, I like him a lot. And another guy in that same kind of category where they added another weapon, it would be Juju Smith-Schuster. I'm in on him as well. I've never been a big Juju guy. I know some people loved him in Pittsburgh. Wasn't necessarily the highest, had some injury concerns, but with Sky Moore going there, there's another weapon. Obviously, they have Travis Kelce. They have some questionable running backs. But Juju, Sky Moore, I like that there's another guy there. I'm definitely high on Sky Moore and what he can be. So I think they'll benefit each other. And so that's why I'm in on Juju and Michael Pittman. Oh, you're on mute, by the way, Mike.
When I saw this on the show sheet, I was excited because we actually disagree.
Are you low on? Which one are you low on?
Here we go.
Or both?
I am not high on even my team, Juju Smith-Schuster. And here's why. It's not, I like him for real football. I'm not high on him for fantasy football. And here is why. When he was the best, to me, the best Juju was when he was the 1B or the 2A, the top. I would have been really high on Juju if Tariq was still on the team because Juju's that type to go in the slot, open it up for Tariq or someone like that caliber to go push the safety out and go down the middle. Juju doesn't have that guy anymore. Yes, there's Kelsey, but Sky Moore's not yet. I know you love Sky, but Sky Moore not yet because he still has to prove it. I don't think Juju is a bona fide number one wideout. He wasn't in Pitt. Even when AB left, he wasn't a bona fide one. I do like Juju, but I'm saying temper expectations for Juju Smith-Schuster. On Pittman, I love Pittman.
We agree on Juju. So my in is relative to where I was before because I was notoriously low on him. So I don't look at him as a wide receiver one as this top tier cream of the crop wide receiver that I'm building my team around. But for example, I made a trade for Juju yesterday. I gave up 2.10 and 2.12.
Okay, I would do that.
And for me, he's my wide receiver 3 behind two of the guys we've talked about, Mooney and Pittman. Okay. And at that point, I look at Juju, oh, cool, you're my wide receiver 3. Or some weeks he'll be my wide receiver 4 if Garrett Wilson's looking good. At that point, I love Juju. But I'm not looking at him as this guy that I'm building my team around. I'm being aggressive and taking him early. I haven't seen him really go that high in startups lately. So I think the stock has already dropped enough. And I don't... Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. So I think there's a happy medium to what you perceived my end to be. Because, I get where the expectations were when he was in Pitt and kind of what his ceiling was at one point versus what it really should be. But I was always lower on him. So I guess it's, that happy medium between just being completely out on him and thinking he's this top tier guy. That's how he should be viewed, just in that happy medium. If he's your wide receiver 3, think he'll treat you well. If he's your wide receiver 1, think you're asking for a bad time there because it's tough to really expect consistency there. And while I am higher than most on Sky Moore, it's going to take some time. We don't know how he'll look week 1. We don't know how long it'll take to, get familiarized with the system and develop chemistry with Patrick Mahomes. So hopefully Sky Moore can be everything that I'm hoping he is, but not expecting it out of the gate. So for a little while, Juju's going to be the primary receiver, and while that could help him, I also just, like Mike was saying, he needs to be more of that deep ball threat while they're focused on someone else. Yeah, it's too bad we couldn't have seen Juju with Mahomes at QB while Tariq was still there, because that would have been fun.
I was wanting him last year as a fan, and then when he signed this year, I was like, oh, yeah. And then when it happened, I was like, when the Tariq thing happened, I was like, oh, well, there goes that idea. But, I mean, he did sign a 1-year deal, but I do think there is a chance that he comes back. Right now on DLF's ADP, overall, not wide receiver, but overall, he's sitting at 70. He's gone down 10 spots in the last month.
I think 70 is still probably a little aggressive. Also, good old boys, I appreciate the South Park reference. I use that GIF a lot for the ski instructor. I think I used that GIF on our first episode when I shared it. Yeah, that's I appreciate the reference there. But no, I think you said 70.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was. Even though I'm in on him, I don't know if I necessarily even like that slot value. I mean, when I traded the 2 late seconds for him, I think he was taken in the 10th, and that's where. No, sorry, he was taken in the 8th, and I gave up one of the picks that I took in the 10th and the other in the 12th. So that's where it was an upgrade in my eyes, but I don't. 7th round, I mean, I think there's other guys still available there. I mean, someone like Mooney is probably in the same range, and I'm going to take Mooney over Juju any day of the week. So in that regard, you definitely temper expectations if you're being aggressive on getting Juju, because I don't think he's the clear and away wide receiver 1 and that he'll provide that type of production for your team.
Sure.
Who do you have next for us, Mike?
All right, so here's my last guy. Here's my bonus pick, and I'm in. I'm gonna say it. I'm in, and I'm just gonna put it up on the board. Yes, he was injured last year, but I do not give a rat's beep. I am in on Travis Etienne, partly because I was in on him last year when he got hurt in the offseason. Yes, he didn't have a rookie year, so this is like his redshirt rookie year, if you want to say that. James Robinson is dinged up. I know they went up and got Snoop Connor in the draft, but here's the thing. Urban Meyer ruined that offense. Urban Meyer ruined Trevor Lawrence's rookie year. Yes, he knocked the Colts out of the playoffs in week 18, but other than that, I don't think you could say he had a good year. But I believe that he is going to be a mid-pack RB2 with upside to be a high RB2. I'll get to your comment in a second, Derek. But part of the reason is the new head coach. Peterson likes to use running backs out of the backfield. Etienne can catch the ball in the backfield. He likes to use them on like little swings and stuff like that. And the reason I know that is he did it in freaking Philly. He came under Andy Reid. Andy Reid likes to do the same thing. I mean, that's how he made, Shady McCoy and all those guys popular. Brian Westbrook. I think that Etienne, I'm not comparing Etienne, the product, to Brian Westbrook, but the style of play, I could see him running that kind of guy. Not the player like not the talent of Brian Westbrook, but the type of player. And I do believe that this is a possibility. A fringe RB1 season incoming for Etienne. I'm not as high on that as you are, Derek, but I can see that as his ceiling. And Jamie says, while Zach is getting ready to ponder and roast me right now, I'm all in on Etienne too. Traded Zeke and A-Rob for Etienne and Drake London. I should be in jail for robbery. Zach, roast me.
I'm not going to roast you. I'm upset. Or I'm not upset. I'm just disappointed. And that's because I need someone to temper my expectations of Travis Etienne. Okay. Because I have been aggressive in startups this offseason where I take Etienne or I trade for Etienne and they're like, whoa, that's too much. Or why are you taking him that early? And all day in the league chats, just like fighting away, giving my case as to why Travis is that dude. I get he was hurt. I don't love that. But Urban was Urban. I'm going to leave it at that for that offense. We don't know what Trevor is because of Urban. That whole team was a mess last year. That's all there is to it. I also refuse to assess QBs based off their rookie year. Year 3 is year 3 is my year. Year 2, I want to see progress. That's usually when I try and buy at a relatively low price. I did that with Josh Allen in a few leagues, and people still hate me for it because I saw the flashes, and then year 3 he broke out. Same thing with Trevor. This year, if you see some little promises, try and buy now because people are still a little torn from what he showed last year. But with that in mind, Travis Etienne, I love him. Give him to me in every league.
If people watching don't know what he looks like, this is the guy you want to have on your roster.
Number one on the uniform and number 1 in my heart. Or maybe number 2 besides Christian Watson. But that's besides the point. But no, Travis Etienne on Fantasy Pros for their PPR Dynasty rankings right now, they've got him slotted at 18. Kenneth Walker's right ahead of him. Then J.K. Dobbins, Cam Akers. I would easily have Travis Etienne before all 3 of those guys. Also, Saquon, I have my injury concerns there. I always try and avoid Saquon because every time I get my hopes up. Another guy where I'm bumping Travis over him. I think I took Travis in a league I took him in the 3rd round, and people thought that was aggressive because I can't even explain why. Because I look at this guy where we haven't been able to see it at all. We've seen someone of James Robinson status produced there. Obviously, James is still dealing with a lingering injury. I guess it's taking longer than expected. Derek said he picked him up in the 4th round today. That's a good deal. I love that pick in the 4th. And and guess what? People are forgetting all of a sudden too. Travis and Trevor were playing together in college. They've got that pre-existing chemistry, and that's going to help with the new coach coming in trying to set up an offense. These two dudes know how to operate together. Obviously, Travis didn't get that game time. But yeah, and it was a torn Achilles for Robinson last year, but he's still nursing it. I read he was behind on the expectation for where he was at, which only helps Travis more. And I've been high on Travis. I'm going to continue to be high. And I think this is a dude that's being slept on right now. And I think fringe RB1 is not necessarily my ceiling. I don't know where I want to put a ceiling at, but that's more or less where my expectation is at. I think he'll be right around there because while they have weapons, I don't necessarily seeing the Jags being that successful of a team. I don't see Snoop Connor really stealing that much from him. And I think Travis is really going to shine this year. So, if you're in a startup, if you're getting him in the 4th round, if he's there at your pick, absolutely. If you're looking for a cheap running back option, and like I said, on Fantasy Pros for the Dynasty PPR rankings, he's RB18. If you can trade for him and you need a running back as your second one, absolutely. This is a guy who I think will help your team succeed if you're looking for that position. So, yeah, I appreciate the Travis Etienne love. I just didn't need to hear it. As I said, I'm already high on him, and I was hoping he'd talk me down from it a little bit as I like what's coming for him.
All right, so this was a great show. We ended on a very good note. So let's just start off with signups. Zach, where can we find you?
You can find me on Going for Two. Obviously, you can find me here as well for the Fantasy Cheat Sheet. We're here every other Tuesday. But no, I'm working on a piece right now for some bye-week stuff to be cautious of in regards to the 2022 season. But that's all I got for plugs. Thank you for having me.
All right. I'm Drop the Mic FF. You can find me on Twitter right there at Drop the Mic FF. Check out my graphics. I'm trying to do some good stuff. I'm the one that made some of the graphics that I put up today. Let us know how you like those. You can also find me on goingfor2.com like Zach. You can also find me on Friday nights, usually at the Rum Boys After Dark show. And there's going to be more coming there. There's going to be more coming on Going for Two. For Mike and for Zach, thanks for joining in on the Fantasy Cheat Sheet. See you guys.